one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Scott.
Here.
Nedrow. Singlets.
Yes.
McGee.
Here.
Dumont.
Here.
Duff.
Here.
Allen.
So we have heard from Mr. Malik and Mr. Nedrow. They are both out of the
I
state.
make a motion that we excuse their absence, and the fact that it's a planned absence.
Second. Motion Duff, second Dumont. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence. We have a letter from Tom Moersch regarding Oak Island paving. I would say before we get into discussion of that, I was going to recommend that we put an Oak Island paving update on the agenda at item D2, and maybe we can talk about what Tom has and how Oak Island is going overall at the same time. We also have a second letter from Dwayne Diacono regarding planning and building inspections and some other issues from this spring. I've talked with the administrator with this. It sounds to me as if the process worked as it should in terms of having to go get a variance, go through the steps. I understand he's not happy about the way that happened, but I think from the village point of view, the process worked the way it should, given what was brought to us.
Yep.
So, do I hear a motion to accept both items of correspondence and file?
So moved.
Second.
So, motion Duff, second Dumont. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Additions to business. So we have two items. First of all, I would like to add a closed session after item 17 at the administrator's request to discuss an item regarding his employment. And I would like to add at item D2, Oak Island paving update. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda with those additions?
So moved.
Again, Duff, Dumont. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Brings us to first call to the public, opportunity for citizens to address the council regarding any and all agenda items. Sure. Yep, name and address.
Good, I get another chance.
Okay, Thomas Sharavelli, I'm at 1845 Ladd Road, right here in Wolverine Lake. So I stood before you 2 months ago, and I had I thought a pretty legitimate complaint. And after sitting through your council meeting, I'm thinking, these are a pretty sharp group of people. I think that they can come up with some kind of a solution for me. And Nathan was very kind to come out to my house. We spent some time together, and we talked about the situation that I had at hand. And, you know, I thought that we were going to get some kind of resolve, and nothing seemed to transpire. I got some kind of a legal recommendation, which to me was really just a farce, frankly. So the issue that I have, so everybody in the room can hear and the recording can hear, is that when you apply for a permit to put a fence up, what are the guidelines for that? Do you guys know what the guidelines are? Anybody?
So we're not going to engage in call and response and question and answer.
Okay, all right, well, the guidelines are printed,
Yeah.
and they're made public, and then you apply for this permit, and then you adhere to the guidelines of putting the fence up. And then a person from the township or the village will come out and approve that they adhere to the guidelines, which did not happen in this scenario. So this woman next door to me, Dixie Gannon, put a fence up that goes like this down the property line, crosses over onto my property line. We've had documented conversations over and over and over again with the police department, the village, the people that answer the phone, the gentleman that approves the fences, and we got no satisfaction. He approved the fence with really ever not even looking at how the fence was placed on the property line. I I mean, it states specifically that both parties must agree if the fence is going to be on the line. Well, she went across the line into our yard, and it's specific because the police of Wolverine, the village of Wolverine Lake, asked me personally if I would go in on a survey for this woman, Dixie Gannon, which I agreed to. So I paid for a survey. She then had the fence put up over our property line, which the survey clearly shows, and the gentleman obviously didn't even look at the fence, and he approved it. So my thought is there some kind of cahoots between the person approving fences and the woman living next door to me? That's my question. So where do we go from here?
So I think we've been through this process pretty thoroughly at this point, and I know Nathan's had some good conversations with
Very
you.
nice, and I appreciate him coming out.
The next step is the legal process is really clear, and the next step for you is circuit court, and that's where you need to go if you want to get action on the fence.
So you want me to go to I have to go to court and explain why your, I don't even know what you call the guy. He's not much if he's not even getting out of his car to approve a fence. I have to go to court because you guys didn't adhere to him doing his job? That's what I have to do.
If that's the way you want to phrase it, that's the next step, yes.
Really? So what are the guidelines for? I mean, if you don't have guidelines and you're not going to make people accountable to the guidelines, why have them? Why don't we just, anybody in the room, just put up a fence wherever they want? Why can't we do that? This doesn't make sense to me.
Look,
So
I know you're unhappy with the outcome. I'm telling you.
No, I'm
that's the
unhappy
next step.
that with your guidelines, John McGee, the guidelines that you guys have to put a fence up in the village. And then nobody adheres or makes sure that the fence is proper. I mean, this fence, if you saw it, Nathan saw it, nobody in any other village, township, or city would have approved the fence at all because it's just a half-ass fence. I mean, it's crooked. There's no rhyme or reason to this fence. It's crazy to me.
Let me ask our village attorney, what's his next step?
We looked at all the materials on this, the conditions of the fence permits, all of those were met. The applicants aren't required to submit a survey, which is what you're talking about. It is also not the village's responsibility to verify the accuracy of a survey and the placement of the fence. That's a civil matter, and that's what you were directed. This is a civil dispute. It's a common civil dispute, but this is one that is done in circuit court. The village can't, there are no remedies at the village level.
Why have guidelines then? Why do you have it on the?
There's no requirement in the guidelines for verification of the accuracy of a survey.
It says in the guidelines specifically that the fence cannot be put on the property line. Why would you have that in the guidelines then?
It
should say you can just put it wherever you want. No, I'm not buying your answer, Jennifer. It's not, first of all, you didn't come out and see the fence, and the materials are not what it was stated was initially what she applied for. Just not that, I'm just telling you. And you didn't come out and see it. And if you lived next to this person with this fence, you would have the same exact complaint that I have. Exactly. So I guess you would have to take it to circuit court is what you guys are saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Really? So I got to get all of you guys in circuit court then? 'Cause I guess I can do that.
Do what you have to do.
I mean,
But I'm
really?
telling you that it's a civil dispute in which the village at this point no longer has jurisdiction. That's your next step. That's where you have to be. And I know you've been to circuit court.
You have jurisdiction, though. It was a documented conversations with the police department, the village. We called up here many times trying to get the guy to come out to take a look at the fence, and we wouldn't get any callbacks. I mean, it was ridiculous. You guys knew that we had issues with this neighbor, so then the guy went and just approved the fence? That's low. It's weak. I think, again, there's something going on between her and the guy that approves the fence. And that's on you guys.
I think we've answered your question the best.
You have not answered it. You just haven't answered it.
The words are, take it to circuit court. Take as much as you want to circuit court. Take whatever you want to circuit court. That's the place to argue this.
Yeah, well, all right. Yep. Thanks for listening.
Is the fence up there?
All right, anybody else? First call to the public. All right, seeing none for first call, and Tom, we will address the paving issue when we get to that item. So if you want to hold till then, I'll make sure we call on you. Let's go on to approval of consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Duff. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
All right. That brings us down, we have no public hearings tonight, to item 12A, recommendation from Zoning Board of Appeals. Recommendation to appoint Bonnie Tupper to the ZBA for a term expiring 12/31/19. Thank you, Bonnie. Where's ours? You're a ZBA, right?
Exactly.
Sorry. Would like to introduce?
Yep, Bonnie, you stand up. Bonnie Tupper, she came before us and we asked her some questions and explained what we did, and she seemed to have good answers back and should make a good addition to the board. So,
All right, do I hear that as a motion to
That's a
appoint
motion.
Bonnie?
Second.
Motion Duff, second Dumont, to appoint her with a term expiring 12/31/19. Further discussion? I just want to say that I've talked with Bonnie a couple times about village involvement and things that she could do, and I think she's going to be a really good fit on the board. She brings a lot to that group. So, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Come on up and be sworn in.
That's my husband, Paving.
We'll join them.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform
and that I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of Zoning Board of Appeals
the duties of the Office of Zoning Board of Appeals
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
and the State of Michigan,
and the State of Michigan,
according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
according to the best of my abilities, so help me God. Thank you.
Sign this.
They got all the tricks and the trees literally haven't had a leaf on it in 4 or 5 years. And they don't cut them down.
better shut it off.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Jennifer, thank you.
Congratulations, thank you for volunteering.
All right. Recommendation for Water Management Board. Motion to ask council to clarify homeowners' responsibility and village's responsibility as a municipality for the maintenance of the lakefront. I think we're going to need more information from Mr. Scott on
Be
this.
my pleasure, be my pleasure. This has been a constant question over the years. It basically gets down to homeowners, certain homeowners, trying to determine and want a determination of where their responsibility begins and/or does ours end. And I think it basically comes out to edge of water, which is a moving target, of course. Most of this comes from the question of, are we as a village responsible to maintain the lake? And if we do maintain the lake and cause weeds and other items that need to be cleaned up at the shore, whose responsibility is the cleanup? The Water Board has looked back into the audience many times and indicated that your parallel lot lines, particularly if they migrate into the center of the lake, that shoreline is yours. We only can do so much as far as the harvesting. We only have so much opportunity to go close into the shore. When we do harvesting and do what we can to go into the shore, there might be weeds left behind. But to clean up those weeds where they lie and end up lying throughout the lake due to winds and et cetera is something that is a homeowner's responsibility if they come and lap on that shore. according to the water board, according to how we render it, and according to what we know as the rules. So there was some discussion on the board. Can we have this definitively put into some form of context by the attorney or by the village, so that it's in writing somewhere within the water management documentation or web or et cetera? There is no definitive line, you know. I mean, we're down 18 inches. When we come into the winter, the shore goes out. We have a lot more shore to take care of. That's your shoreline. Because it goes underwater when we fill, it doesn't change the fact that it's the riparian shoreline to take responsibility for. So that's why the board turned and said, well, maybe there's a way to get this in black and white to solve it over time. And we were looking, as I'm looking right now with Jennifer, to see if there's some simple way to do this, if it's too complex from rules and et cetera.
Oh, I think if there was a simple way, it would have been done.
Well, I would have been done a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's,
I mean,
we know that.
So one small thing and one slightly larger thing, and then I think maybe I'll go to our attorney. Just as a small thing, and I think Ed has pointed this out many times, a lot of those weeds that come floating around to various places, and I say this as somebody whose shoreline collects more than
Same
its share,
here, sure.
are, you know, it's from propellers going through the lake. It's not necessarily generated by the harvester, so I want to be
Well, of
clear on,
course, that's-
be clear on that point. To the larger issue, I think what we will find is there are some perhaps clear-cut, larger riparian guidelines in terms of ownership and responsibility, but a lot of it will end up being, you know, policy.
Yeah.
Where do we want it to be? Where does it belong? So let me go to Jennifer, and then I'll go to Ed.
Thank you.
So I think the best way I can do this is outline, I've heard your questions are, is the village responsible to maintain the lake? Where does that responsibility end? And does that include the shoreline?
Correct.
So I can just outline those items for you in a, you know, a memo or something, and then we can look at maybe putting a policy together, or, I don't know, if you want to codify that in your ordinances. We can look at some different options and make some suggestions for you.
I think that's the
not
beginning.
pretty-
I think it's.
I mean, that won't take
yeah.
long to outline that
Yeah.
information for you.
All right, let me go to Ed, and then let me go to our chief.
Well, I guess one of the things we have to remember that we used to have a Friday pickup. We don't have that anymore. We've got an extra DPW person on staff, and it's the same old thing is when I get weeds, I pile them up on the shore, let them dry out for a day, hopefully before the weekend, then put them in with the yard waste. But there was a couple people that I went and looked at, be it from the harvester or from just boat traffic, are in a cove where they were overwhelmed. I mean, there's no way, I don't think they could have cleaned that out enough to utilize that lake on the weekend or that day. But what we've done in the past, and the harvester can help sometimes. I'm not saying that everybody's got, oh, I got a bushel of leaves, you gotta come in here. But if they pull in with their cutter down, and then the people throw the mass of weeds on the conveyor belt, it'll go to the back and it's picked up. But I'm not at all saying that this is something that every time you call up and you got a weeds, but I think some of you that have been around a lake down on the a Laguna down in that end over there, I mean, they were just, you know, and maybe there was more of a southerly wind than normal, but that was unbearable. I mean, that was a harvester load. So I think one solution might help is to reinstall the Friday pickup. And if not that, at least in certain cases where the administrator feels that this is warranted, let the harvester go in there. People make arrangements for them, throw it down there and carry it away. But they did a lot of weed harvesting off of that one section there almost the whole year.
So-
We'll go to Chief Ellsworth and then I'll
Well,
come.
I can tell you from a legal perspective, a lot of what I'm gonna say to you is a lot of what you do is gratuitous. And maybe all of it. And so I'm not gonna outline whether or not you should be doing that. I'm just gonna outline for you exactly why it is or is not your responsibility and how far that responsibility extends, if you have any, from a legal perspective.
And I think that's what I
we're
mean in
looking
terms
for,
of, this
yeah.
would be more policy than
Yes.
Yeah.
our legal responsibility.
Right.
Yeah. And we can argue
Wait,
individual
let me-
cases too.
Let me, Chief Ellsworth has been waiting. patiently.
Real quick, I just want to remind you that the Village of Wolverine Lake does not own the lake of Wolverine Lake. It's the state of Michigan, and they are the ones that are responsible ultimately for that lake. They're the ones that grant us permits to do the things we do in there. They're the ones that tell us where we can, where we can't put buoys. It is the state of Michigan. It's not the Village of Wolverine Lake. And the things we do out there, we do, as Jennifer said, gratuitously, to help the citizens. Now, as far as responsibility goes, I don't know you can claim responsibility for some of the things we do. You can say that we do these things on behalf of the village residents, but we don't own that lake. And a lot of people forget that. They think we own the lake because we're surrounded by the lake. We do not own that lake. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clear for people.
John.
I was going to say, well, and just to follow up on what you said, Chief, that was also explained at the meetings, that the edge of water becomes a movable target, but it's a movable target over the bottomlands you own. And from the standpoint of this conversation has been repeated many times in the 15 or 17 years that I've been involved with the water board. I know with you, John, it's the same thing. And there are people who do suffer from the unfortunate position of being in the wrong coordinates during certain days of heavy winds. And I agree, it's not all the harvester, because we don't have harvesting in the back, and we have weeds. A lot of those are being pulled up by geese and ducks and et cetera. So
I get my
think
most
where
prolific
she's-
crops after a weekend.
Exactly. So, and I think where Jennifer, where you're going with this is really what we're looking for. Something that takes the gray and puts it maybe in darker gray with a little bit more black and white, because it's not going to be an issue that's ever going to be solved. It's something that the village works to solve, but it's nothing that can be solved. It's always going to be up to the personal, individual attitude of the riparian or landowner as to whose responsibility it is for those weeds floating at us.
So in terms of moving this forward, does this seem like the sort of thing that we should ask the attorney to look into, perhaps draft a memo, maybe bring it back to the admin committee so the admin committee can discuss it and see where legal responsibility ends, where village policy begins, and we can establish something that's at least clear and written for people.
Yeah, because I don't think when you say we don't own the lake is really comprehended by people.
Right.
They don't understand the rules.
And we do a lot on the lakes. It's really a matter of what are the things that we choose to do and what's the extent to which we choose to do them.
One quick
Well said.
comment. The reason there are harvesters out there is to harvest weeds out of the lake. And when you have a couple 100 feet of weeds and 70, 80 feet out from the shoreline, that's easy picking. Those weeds should be removed out of the lake, not to float down and sink or go someplace else. And I think that's another thing to consider, that if there's an area where they're trapped like that, again, we're not talking about manicuring shorelines, but that's the whole purpose of having a harvester, is to remove the weeds and when we cut them and remove them out of the lake. So I would think that that's something to consider when we discuss this.
Great. So do I hear a motion
I'll make a motion.
to ask the attorney to review, draft a memo, and to work with the admin committee to, get clarity on the issue and report back to council?
I'll support that.
Motion Duff, second Scott. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, recommendation to amend the Oak Island seawall maintenance agreement. Speaking of things that went to admin but have now come back, ask the administrator to explain this.
Sure, thank you, President McGee. I want to thank Mr. Powell and Attorney Lowski for helping with this. This is something we've been looking at in the summer. There's a seawall over on Oak Island that's damaged, and it took a lot of research to figure out what the situation was with that seawall, but we've had an agreement with 3 property owners over there since the early 90s about maintaining that, and this would change that agreement with their approval to transfer responsibility for that seawall over to these property owners. They've all agreed to do that. It's an easier process, I think, than having us involved. It's not a seawall that really serves a public village purpose necessarily, so if this were passed, it would amend the current agreement to allow them to have responsibility over that seawall. They would like to have that, and the funds that are in the line item that have been collected from these property owners since the early 90s would be divided and refunded back to them for the purpose of maintenance of the seawall. So appreciate the attorney for the language, and appreciate the residents for working with us to find a solution that works well for everyone, and if it's approved, we will get working on this right away.
Yeah, I'll make a motion if we can make this move forward.
Support.
Motion Dumont, second Sinkowitz. Further discussion?
This will take it completely out of our hands, and then.
Yep, yeah, it just gives it back to those residents.
And this is something they want to do.
Yep, there's written verification from them in there that they're approving of this.
Perfect.
Simplifies life for everybody.
Yes.
Further discussion? Yeah, let's get a roll call vote.
Vicki?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
Motion carries. Recommendations from Engineer Powell, 2018 crack sealing program.
Good evening, Council. This is something that the village undertakes each and every year in the late fall of the year, and that's to seal coat, to fill all the cracks that occur in the various pavements around the village. We wait until the end of the year simply because the asphalt pavement, as it cools, the cracks get as wide as they're going to get, and so we have the ability to fill them a lot easier in the fall time. A&R seal coating, we went out for bids, we publicly advertised, and we invited the 3 bidders that bid each year on the village property. A&R seal coating has been low bidder for the last 6, 8, 9 years, and they have yet to raise their price. So at 49 cents a lineal foot, they do an excellent job. They know what they're doing, and I highly recommend that we continue with them and allow us to do the crack sealing this year.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we award A&R the seal coating contract for the following year.
Second.
Motion Duff, second Sinkowitz. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Thank you, Council.
All right, don't go,
No,
don't go away so far. What I was hoping for is an update on Oak Island paving, which is going on now, and then when we get to the end of that, let's discuss Tom's letter and what was contained in there, so.
Yes. If any of you have had a chance to get up on Oak Island, H.G. Sarter Paving Company has been working on it all week. We removed the bad sections of asphalt and milled other areas to drop the pavement down to where it can butt against existing driveways. We've modified some of the drainage requirements in there. They have also now repaired some of the pavement, put the leveling course down, and they have completed the parking areas as what was approved for the park plan up on Oak Island. So the 3 parking places in the main island area, and then the 3 over that we're going to be talking about in a little minute, in a couple minutes, have been completed, and they will be in there tomorrow morning putting the finishing coat, or what we call the wearing course, on the asphalt tomorrow. And then they will be coming back in to put some small wedges on the sides of the roadway to control where that water flows down from the upper part of Oak Island down to the bridge itself. We want to make sure that no road water runs into people's driveways, and that's how we control that. So we are looking to have that project completed here this week.
All right, questions about the general update? All right, so let me see if I, oh, yeah.
I was just gonna say, it looks great, thank you.
Mike, we had a conversation about this earlier, and I've had some additional communications this afternoon about Canal. And obviously, that's a private easement. It's not a road that we would pave ourselves. But
Correct.
I've gotten some feedback from some residents there that the contractors indicated to them that they might be interested in doing that road. But and I specified with the resident that that's between the property owners and the contractor, because it's a private road. It's not something we could coordinate. But I just want to make sure I'm giving them the right advice, that it's encouraging them to pursue that privately while they're mobilized in the area. If they want to continue, that's certainly a possibility, but it's not something that we would oversee or manage or fund because it's not a public road.
That is exactly correct. It's much like Heron Hills. We made the contractors available to the private owners at the rates that the village obtained in the public bidding process, but it is not, it's not an area where the village can actually pave on private property, and so that's the issue.
Do either of you know if Canal has their own homeowners association or other mechanism for maintaining that?
The owner that I spoke with indicated that there was not one, and that was a challenge to trying to get this organized. I also explained that we're kind of working at warp speed here. We just had this approved at the last council meeting, and they're already out working, and so there's not a lot of time for coordination. But I just wanted to make sure that you know, if we can assist in just connecting people to someone, we will do that, but we can't take it further than that. And I just wanted to go on the record that we're acknowledging those conversations. I sympathize with their position, but we can't pave that road. We can't fund that road being paved. But if it's something they want to work out with a contractor that's out doing our work, they can certainly pursue that. I just don't know how organized they can be on such a short time frame. And
Yeah,
so
it's
a challenge.
without that. I know it was a challenge around the bridge down there. John, were you going to say something?
Only that knowing people on that particular drive, there are, and just comments that you might make, Mike, there are some challenges, erosion challenges and lot line challenges. The lot lines come across the entire canal and edge into Canal Drive from the homes across the street. So on Tampa, just so they recognize that. It's not going to be an easy project. There's been suits on that and all kinds of stuff.
It was an area in which, you know, as I understand it, the village looked at potentially taking that in as a road, and it met none of our criteria for being able to take it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to extend the conversation, but I do want the residents there to know that we're not unsympathetic to the situation. It's just not much that we can control as a public entity on that road. And so I just wanted to make sure that the information I was sharing was accurate, and if we get any questions, that's how I'll continue to present it moving forward.
And I do have a little update from that, Nathan. I did talk with Harold Sarter, the paving contractor. He was contacted by one of the property owners on Canal. He then put an employee in touch with the Canal people, went out and actually gave them a price to do that roadway, with the understanding that it is a totally independent, separate project from the Oak Island project. And so they are continuing talking back and forth, and it would be handled as a private paving project here in the village.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question on that? This was a question that was asked before by one of the residents of me. Does the village engineer become involved at all in the design and layout and management of that pavement, if they were to decide to go ahead at their own cost? I don't know if that's a proper question for the forum.
My initial thought is no, because it's private property. It's not our project.
Better to be said here in open public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only time that I would be when the bridge was being built, it was a structure that needed really an approval from the village. However, as President McGee said, paving a private road is much like them paving their driveway.
Yep.
If, in fact, they paved up to a section of village road, then there's a right-of-way work permit that has to be obtained, and that's just in the area of pavement that would be in a village road right-of-way. Otherwise, we have no part in it.
Yeah, I think that conclusion came from your work with the bridge.
Correct.
What would be the situation if they wanted to hire you to make sure that the road was done right?
I would have to make sure that I had permission
Okay.
and direction from council before I could do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
It covers most of the questions.
it's a good idea. I had the same idea, but I think it feels to me like it falls into a potential conflict of
Yeah.
interest
Yep.
for our engineer to work on their road. Even paid separately.
Correct.
Still, he has to represent our interests where that comes out to the village right away on either side.
That is correct.
Thank you.
And when the bridge happened, the village actually took over under emergency measures. So
Yes.
we had to go in there with our engineers and secure the contract and have the bridge rebuilt because it collapsed.
Yes.
That canal technically isn't a road. It's not even really an easement.
No.
It's just referenced on several of the deeds. And I think just throughout time, it turned into a road, or what looks like a road. So it wouldn't even be a private road situation that would go through any kind of engineering review.
Yeah, it's not even like set up as an official
Big driveway.
platted
Basically.
homeowner association.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a big driveway.
Right.
It's not even that big, really.
Yeah.
Right.
It's pretty small. Okay, let me move on to Tom Moersch's situation. We have at least one member of the public who wants to be able to speak, so let me introduce it, then I'll ask to open to the public. We can let Tom talk about what he has. We can let our other member talk, and then we can talk a little bit about what's there. So, to summarize, as council, we looked at what's in the park, looked at all the available things, worked with the Oak Island Park Association, came to a conclusion this spring about where the parking should be, approved the plan, looked again at it as we awarded this contract finally last month. We have decided the parking is where we agreed it would be, and we did that not in a vacuum, but with the Oak Island Park Association and some other folks. As we all know, Oak Island has a long and contentious history that was there over a long time. In particular, there was a fairly substantial council meeting, I believe it was a work session, back in 2002, talking about the overall platting of the road, where it was, whether or not Oak Island should be replatted as a whole. There was council consensus at the end of that we would leave the island platting where it was. That does not, from my point of view, and I was actually in the audience there, I wasn't on council at the time, but I was in the audience at that meeting. I didn't come away from that thinking that meant council would never choose to do things in the park or in other areas, but that the roadway would remain where the roadway was, and we wouldn't go to a full replatting of the island. That's what I took away from that. Mr. Moersch is not happy with the decision to pave parking lots into the grass island that was there between the roadway and the driveway that they have. He's of the opinion that we're, in working with that, which I think he said is public property, but that they made assumptions around what would be there going forward, did their own paving project, wants to see if he can be recompensated for some of what they did. And I think that I'm trying to capture everything that was in that letter. And so that's the issue that he has brought forward. Having said that, do I hear a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Motion
I'll
passed, second
second
Dumont.
it.
Further discussion? Let me go to Mr. Moersch.
Tom Moersch, 265 Oak Island. The paving is done, so there's not a whole lot you're not going to tear it out. I got two things I'd like to talk about. Well, just to give you some information, we had to pull a permit when we had that paved. Now, whether that was because it's on public property or why, I don't know why we had to pull a permit. I would assume Canal would have to pull a permit to do it also. So you'd have to
I assume
check it
they
out
would
there.
too.
Okay. Two things I want to talk about is where they ended the pavement coming off the main road, Oak Island. I would like to pave it from there to the Circle Drive. It's about, I don't know, 10, 12 feet wide, and it's just going to be a mud if we don't do something with it. Secondly, this should have been done in 2001 when that meeting was in October. I'm asking the council to direct their attorney to draw up something that's going to be binding to future councils, that no more development of the Ghost Road or any other property that the village owns in that area is going to be developed more than it is. The Ghost Road actually encompasses probably about 7 or 8 different homes. And this should have been done in 2001 when that meeting was. It wasn't. If you go back, we tried to get the park and the road paved and the park dedicated back in 1985. Conley, we went round and round with them. He was going to talk to Winberry and this and that, and then finally it was dropped. And several times it just, it got to a point and nothing else happened. So I'm requesting that you draw something up that no more land is going to be taken from the residents because it's encroaching on their so-called property, not their property, but we all know that the Ghost Road belongs to the village. If you start future councils start encompassing even that Ghost Road, you're going to be in people's front doors. So,
okay. But
today, you're going to have to make a decision of whether you're going to pave that or not, because tomorrow they're going to be finished.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We've got one more member of the public who wanted to speak, so let's get to that. We'll close to the public, then we'll go back into discussion.
Debbie Melvin, 25 Payne Court. Off of Tampa, it says private property. You cannot go on that road. Is that private property?
That is private property. Canal Street, are you talking about?
I guess that's the...
Yeah, yes.
So even though it's Oak Island, that particular whole area,
That
we're not
particular
allowed to
whole
go?
area is private property.
Okay, because that's what we were told, and it didn't make sense.
And that's why it's not a village road. That's why we're not paving it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, motion to close.
Should close.
Second.
Motion Duff, second Dumont. Further discussion? Okay, so let's take the first item, which is, do we have a gap in the paving? And I think I'm going to turn that to our engineer, and if so, is it something we should close?
The approved park plan does have the 3 parking spaces in the island area between Oak Island Drive and the Circle Drive that Mr. Moersch is actually talking about. The Circle Drive serves independent driveways that goes to the individual homes on the outside of that Circle Drive. The inside of that island area was grass. However, it was actually defined as a couple parking spaces coming in from the Circle Drive, not off of the Oak Island Drive. The park plan does show a section of grass area. Mr. Moersch said that it was about 10 feet. It's really only about 5 feet between the end of the new parking spots and the Circle Drive, but it goes the entire width of the parking areas. So it is an area that will have to be maintained. It's a grass area, and somebody will have to cut that grass unless it were made to gravel or some other surface. It could now be, if council wanted to, we could extend that pavement all the way from the end of the 3 parking spaces onto that Circle Drive. I just caution council that it would entice people that park in those 3 spaces to not back out and drive down Oak Island Drive. It would entice them to pull straight forward and use that Circle Drive to exit those 3 parking places. That's the only negative side that I can see of tying that pavement into that Circle Drive. I've always treated that Circle Drive as a driveway. I want to remind council that virtually every driveway in the village has a section of pavement between the edge of a road and their property line. And that is still considered a driveway, even though it's on village property. This is the way that I've always interpreted that Circle Drive as part of a driveway, those three common driveways there. And I think DPW, I don't want to speak for DPW, but I believe the village administration has seen it that same way. That's why they don't plow it, they don't maintain it. But it's strictly a decision by council, and I can certainly give you engineering advice, but this is going to be a council decision as to how to proceed from here, whether we leave it the way the park plan was approved, or, and I agree with Mr. Moersch, it's really not too late to tie those pavements together. The contractor's still there, he can remove that and put new pavement in there. But it does imply now that the village pavement is going to be using that circle driveway as well.
So, at least on my own part, I think I would like to maintain some distinction there and keep general traffic and general parkers off the Circle Drive the best we can. It sounds to me like we have certainly assumed responsibility for landscaping of that area in terms of maintaining it and making sure that it doesn't become muddy area, and maintaining it in a way that's attractive and maintains the distinction there. I don't think we've got, I don't recall, we don't have any curbing or anything around that. We've really just got sort of pavement, a couple of cement enders at the end of the driveway, right?
I don't even believe we have bumper blocks being proposed there. That certainly is a possibility. That would preempt anybody from going forward. I believe it's designed as a grassy area to be included in the landscaping with the park area.
I would be more inclined with the bumper blocks than to pave it.
So, council's pleasure here, really.
Yeah, maybe with some comment by Nathan, that's the next phase, which is to do some landscaping renderings. And it was my impression, and there's no reason why Tom couldn't put into this, that that really the concept was to isolate those three parking spots and create a space that from a landscaping standpoint would look good also behind it to the neighbors, rather than making it a access to drive through what is a parking spot and end up on the Circle Drive. Just as a point of clarification, that Circle Drive is really still Village Park property, correct?
My impression of the plat and the surveying in there, that Circle Drive is in fact on village property. There may be little sections of it that are on private property, but it's majority on village property, correct?
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, part of all of those discussions back in 2001, I think actually, it was after I read Tom's well-done letter here that some of my comments were included in there, and I was thinking, my goodness, that's 17 years ago we were discussing this issue at that point in time. It seems to me that council also was involved with discussions of, okay, if in fact those areas, this ghost drive, which is literally the platted road, is to become private property, then there had to be replatting. And I don't think those 7 or 8 or 9 homes really wanted to become involved with the financial cost of replatting. So I think what council did is probably something that's not in line with statute of frauds and et cetera, in the sense of trying to move property through public domain rather than doing it through platting and replatting and filing. That's something for Jennifer to talk about. But I think we ended up where we are, and I think we've ended up in a good place.
So let's go to the broader issue of general platting of the road and all that in a second. But as a practical matter, because we do have the pavers out there deployed, are we reasonably satisfied that at least for now, we're going to try to maintain it, possibly bumper blocks? We'll see what else is a reasonable option there, so that it's landscaped and there is a distinction kept for Circle
I believe
Drive.
we did our due diligence in terms of the planning and the work sessions and whatnot to come up with that plan.
And I'm happy with that answer. I just want to make sure that we're that we don't want to proceed down the paving. We're going to have pavers out next year at some point, so, you know, there's always more paving. Okay, so for now, that's as is. On the broader issue, I certainly don't think we're going to solve that tonight. So, at risk of sending another thing to admin, right, when I'm running away from the admin committee, this seems to me like something that we should send to the administrative committee to look at a little further. I know that as a legal matter, this council can't bind future councils. So what that would be, or whether we want to keep the status quo there, I don't know. My understanding, and this is from my memory of the meeting of 16, 17 years ago, and having just sat in the back and watched, was that the alternatives were let it generally lay where it lies, or replat. That those were really just the two alternatives. But I'd be willing to have admin take a look at it and come back with a recommendation.
Now, short of road vacations, which you've done at least one that I can think of over there.
Middle Road
Middle
is
Road,
vacated.
part of it. I'm sorry. Short of road vacations, which part of Middle Road was vacated at one point, the plat is gonna control this. So there are so many places in the village where things aren't where they're supposed to be according to their plats. And that's a problem. But that, you know, if you wanna fix the basically as-built according to the plat, it requires a replat. And when it's on waterfront, it's a very involved process.
Back in that 2001 and 2 era, I was president at the time, and I had pushed to get all the roads paved in the village that weren't paved. And when we got to the island, our attorney at that time suggested that because where the roads were platted, I'm talking about the outside roads, not the ghost road, that the homes were almost right on top of the edge of the road. So he determined that since, I'm hoping I get this right, the village has maintained, plowed that road where it was, that all the people that were involved agreed pave it where it's at. That was the plowed road, and that's where it's at now. And I also think that someplace along the line there was supposed to be a quick claim deed, and I don't know if that was ever done. So that adds to.
Well, I'd have to look at what
Yeah.
the purpose of the quit claim deeds would be. What's coming to mind is more so in that situation, giving the homeowners encroachment easements like you've done in your road endings.
Yeah.
Because their house is up to the road. Now, I don't know what happened 17 years ago. Or I did see this invoice for quit claim deed, so I don't know what that means, but I don't know why there would have been quit claim deeds in that situation.
And maybe something like that would give them better protection there, where we do have this, you know, this long-standing problem, not unique to Oak Island, but perhaps, you know, Oak Island's got more than its share.
Of a uniqueness.
So rather than further solve this one tonight, can I have a motion to send this to the administrative committee for further review? Second. Motion Duff, second Demott. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we'll take a look and we'll see what we can do there. All right. Update from the Veterans Memorial Committee. I do have a couple of updates, but the major one is we came to a motion, and I recommended this strongly. We couldn't, because of various scheduling issues, we couldn't hold our joint meeting to review Project Snap and some other things last month. There's still, I think, a lot of different visions about what this memorial could be or should be. And I think that's made it a really frustrating process for everybody involved in terms of being able to move forward, being able to schedule things and being able to move forward. And as I look at it, we missed sort of an important step in the overall planning for this Veterans Memorial, which is we didn't do an original visioning committee. We had our meeting in January. We said, you know, it came up as a proposal, as a goal. Let's do a Veterans Committee. We all said, hey, that's great. Let's do it. Let's form a committee, go out and do it. But we never really spent the time to go back, find out what everybody's vision of what the memorial should be, to get everybody on board. The committee brought forward a motion today to have as our work session for 2 weeks from now, that visioning committee, also the presentation from Project SNAP, which had to be canceled. And I'd strongly recommend that we do this, because without getting the committee and the council and all the other stakeholders in the community on board, I think we're going to end up in the same sort of spinning our wheels mode for a long time, and I think that's been frustrating. It makes it difficult to fundraise. It makes it difficult to plan. It makes it difficult to move this thing forward. In terms of what the visioning part of the session would be, my intention would be to give everybody a little bit of homework, write up a paragraph on what you think we should have for a Veterans Memorial, draw a picture of what you think the Veterans Memorial should be. You won't be graded on your artistic skills, but we'll do the same with the Veterans Committee. We'll do the same with Parks and Rec. We'll put out a call to the community for everybody who has a stake or has an interest to come forward, bring it forward. We'll collect them up before the meeting, and then we'll go through and we'll see what the collective proposals of the community are for this, and work through that process in terms of what's the scope of it, what's the design of it, how big should it be, what should the general feel of it be, because without that, I think we're going to end up in this situation where people are like, well, it should be bigger, it should be smaller, it should be Lakes area. Well, maybe Lakes area was too much, but we need to get to accord. We need to get to agreement on what this thing should be as a concrete proposal. Everybody's on board. There's a lot of enthusiasm for doing something, and I think that's part of what makes it so frustrating that we haven't been able to move faster on this. So that would be the motion from the Veterans Committee, that we do this at our next work session, and I would entertain a motion from council to that effect. I hear
I'll
silence.
support that.
Motion from
We get
Scott. Do I
into
hear a
discussion.
second? Do I hear a second for the motion? We can discuss it. If it gets voted down, it gets voted down.
No seconds?
I will second this then, so that we can
Okay.
discuss further.
All right. Well, one question I would have is, I could imagine 30 or 40 different renderings, pictures, and et cetera. Certainly, the Memorial Committee itself should be part of the general overall steerage, and I guess that's really the question: what body of individuals or a individual is going to sit down and say, okay, I've seen all of this, and this is what we're going to go down the track with? Are we going to do that an open vote like we've done on the park
Ultimately,
okay.
It needs to be a council decision.
Yeah, I understand that.
Council
Yeah.
needs to be on board, and we need to give, I think, a little bit more direction. The committee's brought forward a lot of information. There's a lot of really great information available. I think we all know a lot more about what the possibilities are, what the options are. But without that, without agreement from council of, hey, this is what we'd like it to be, and without council sitting and listening to the committee members saying, hey, here's what we'd like it to be, I don't see how we proceed with this as a concrete project.
Well, I agree with that, and I also think there's the budgetary issue or the money issue. It's a question of looking out the track. What is it we want to do in stages? What does a Memorial Committee want to do in stages? What's the ultimate goal? Do we think we have $350 or $400,000 or $500,000 end reach we're looking for? So there's a lot of things that could be accomplished in this kind of session. And I think that's what you're saying. Is that what is being said? Is that's part of the difficulty here? Nobody really knows how to lead through those discussions?
Let me open it up to the chair of the Veterans Committee, Debbie Malvin.
We have a lot of different visions.
Yeah.
voice their opinions. They don't like it's too big, it's too costly, how are we gonna raise these type of funds? How many years would this end up taking? What would phase one be?
Debbie, do you think that you could have the committee come to a conclusion, maybe, or come to maybe 2 options? Could they narrow it down to 2 versions of what you've come up with?
Yes.
And then from there, what are the chances you could get it down to 1?
I think that would be council's vote.
We tried that, but John's suggestion is that was not the best approach.
I honestly don't think that that's going to get us where we need to be. The committee's come forward with an idea of what they think they would like, in general, but that was, as we know, a contentious process.
Shouldn't the committee that we set up for this Veterans Committee for the memorial, shouldn't they come up with a design, what they want, this is what they have in mind, bring it to us, and then we make a decision when it comes to funding?
Well, I think we're even more of a step back before funding, because I think when we set this up, we went forward, we skipped this step, and, you know, I'll say on my part, it was a rookie mistake of setting up something in a public space with a lot of public input and a lot of public funds, in that we didn't go through the process of finding what it was. And the committee went out, and a lot of cart got before horse here. They went out, they started with a fundraising vision. They started with, what do we need to do to accomplish a large project? Well, we need to make it a lakes area memorial. Okay, let's have a lakes area memorial. Now what should it look like? What I'm talking about is getting back to the original vision that we all discussed back in January of, hey, we want to do a memorial. What should that look like? We never did that, and without doing that, they've gone forward, and that committee has had, you know, a vision of what they want, but in all honesty, the committee is pretty divided on what they want, what the scope of it should be. On this council, we've been pretty divided on what we want, what it should be. They're proceeding now with a bit of a blind spot in terms of what the council will approve, what the council won't approve, what the council is really in favor of.
So we're going to tell the committee what we think they should build.
No, we're going to all sit together, talk about what each one of us thinks this should be, and see if we can reach consensus among all of us. And then, yes, we're going to say, now, committee, this is what we've agreed on, go build it.
Let me make a suggestion, if I could. This is very familiar and almost deja vu in what we did over a 3-year period to get to where we are with the park plan. And whether it's Carl Wortman, who, or somebody of a similar engineering planning background, knowing the size and the scope of the area within our park we're willing to commit to sit in on that meeting, and maybe you can bring forward anybody who wants to bring forward renditions, ideas. Then maybe we can throw it over to such an individual who can give us an idea of what this combination would best look like within the configuration of the area designed and the cost. Because eventually, whether it's contributions by the village, whether it's 100% by outside sources, you're going to have a number that you're going to have to deal with. Engineering costs, design, planning costs, and et cetera. I would ask Nathan what he thinks of that as an approach from all of his experience in various communities.
Well, we've talked to our own engineer who's offered to be helpful when the time is appropriate.
Okay.
I know Carlisle Wortman would help us with the rendering. The problem is I don't know what to direct them to render.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We know that. I'm just.
And so we have consultants and experts who will be helpful for this. I think the trouble is what is phase one, and because that has to be agreed upon, and there hasn't been agreement to that point yet. And so we have people who are going to help us fulfill whatever the vision is, but it's getting to the vision that's been the challenge. And so I think what we're talking about is how do we get there.
And that's really their profession, though. I mean, they do this for cities. Carl Wortman, other planning organizations, they do sit in front of these kind of meetings and committees and individuals and citizen meetings. And
if you actually
come back.
If you look at our one of the drafts of our Clara Miller Park Master Plan, it was being finished right as this was beginning, this conversation. And so they actually did a rendering of a memorial that was in that plan. But it was made clear that that was just, because we didn't really know what we were doing at that point with the memorial, so it was just something they put together. They're very good at this, and I'm sure they would help us, but it's just a matter of what kind of direction. And if we want to involve them, I can certainly ask that question.
I'd be happy to have them lead it, but I mean, I know it feels like a big step back, but I think unless we take this step back, I don't see how this proceeds.
Yeah.
Let me go to Ed next.
Yeah, I was originally on that committee, and there was a couple others of us there, and apparently they did, our presence were not necessary. So we removed ourselves from the committee. But I think you have to go back to, you know, what started it all off was, where's it gonna be? Okay, we're gonna put it here, we're gonna put it there. No, we're gonna tear out the physical fitness portion.
So here, Ed, is where I'm talking about,
But-
cart got before horse. Location got before what the vision for the memorial should be.
That's what I was alluding to. And the other thing is, I think we have to make a decision before we even, and this is where I kind of agree with Dave. This committee, I mean, everybody's got their own idea. Some, you know, want to make it like a tabernacle, and some of them want to just have a flag and a soldier standing there. That's immaterial. We need to get a handle on a budget. $250,000. That's what we're going for, and that's what we're going to build with, or 300, or 500, whatever. And then there's tons of people that design and put these together. But that's the kind of stuff we have a committee for. And as Dave pointed out, that committee should get some of that work done and say, here's some of the drawings we have, here's the location, here's the kind of prices, and you know, you can have a standing up, sitting down, kneeling, whatever it is, and then we go to a work session. But I don't think it's fair to the committee to go to a work session to tell them what they're supposed to do.
So first of all, Ed, that's not what I'm proposing. Second of all, what you just said is, again, cart before horse. We're gonna have a veterans committee. First decision is, what's the budget? And then build around that. I'm talking about a step that's further back, which is, what should this thing be? What sense should people have when they come in? What should the location be like? How should it be? Should it be something cheerful? Should it be something somber? Should it be something that is interactive? What sort of atmosphere should it have? What should this thing be? And I don't think we ever, as a community, got to there. We said, oh, we've seen other veterans memorials. It should be something like that. And so we've ended up with everybody going to a different starting point, be it budget or location, or, hey, we've got Project Snap. Project Snap is really cool. There's a lot there, and I really want us to hear about it. But without knowing, okay, so here's how it fits in, and here's how it fits in with the plan, we don't know if it belongs there. The committee has brought forward a drawing. They've got a rendering. They say, this is the sort of thing that we'd be interested in. But when we come back and discuss that at the council, the first thing we say is, that's too big, that's too expensive. At least I've heard that feedback on many occasions. And if it's too big and too expensive, then fine, but I think we need to talk about, what do we want this memorial to be? And I don't think we ever had that proper discussion. You know, at some level, this is council's decision how they want to proceed. As we know, this is my final full meeting at the gavel. I'm happy to chair a work session on that, and I think we may end up having to have a special meeting this month anyways. And I really want us to hear more about Project Snap, because I think a lot of people don't have information on what they do and what they're proposing. But this is my sense from having been here on council, from having been in the original one, from having been involved in the Veterans Committee meetings for several months, is that there's still not a unified community vision of what this thing should be. We know we want a memorial. People are really enthused about that idea. But should it be something big? Should it be the Lakes Area Memorial? There's sort of a discussion of, well, we don't want to have a drive-by memorial like everybody else where it's just there and people drive by it and nobody ever thinks about it. Well, that's fine, but if that's the case, then what is a non-drive-by memorial? What is that? How is that there? And if we want to have Carlisle Wortman in to sponsor that, to do it, to sponsor that discussion, to run that. Chris runs a really good visioning meeting. We got a lot done in that meeting about Clara Miller Park and how we should plan it. That's fine with me, but I think this is an area in which we never did the original piece of homework we should have done. And that's why this has been a frustrating process over the last year for everybody who's involved. And I just want to remove that frustration, get us together with a unified vision of what we're trying to build here, and proceed.
So then are we gonna remove the concept of where it's going to be?
I think we have to, at least for this point, go back to square one. What do people want? Where it's going to be is a secondary question. What should it be? What is this memorial? Is it something big? Is it something small? Is it something interactive? Does it have picnic tables? Does it have accommodations for children? Is it a place where we just hold ceremonies on Memorial Day and Veterans Day? All of those things, I think, are basic to the concept of what is a public memorial? What is it? What's the scope of it? I just don't think we ever had that discussion, and I think that's the thing that has frustrated progress here.
But that's the purpose of the committee. And if we're going to make the decision, if we're going to become artists and draw this and put together our plan, big or small, how are we not undercutting this committee in the same way we have with the Water Management Board and with the Park and Rec Board?
Because I'm saying it needs to be a joint community thing. We sent this committee out originally without the proper guidance in terms of what it should be. The committee has brought forward ideas, but listen to me, Dave.
Okay.
I'm not saying the design each one of you will write is the design that we'll have. What I'm saying is I want an original vision from everybody of what they want to see for this thing, and then let's see if we can get to a general scope and a general agreement about what we're aiming at. Then we can bring in somebody like Carlisle Wortman and say, hey, what we want is something fairly large, in a wooded area or in a sunny area or whatever, and we can direct them to things. We have sort of a concept drawing from the committee that they brought forward, but there has never been genuine unity about that concept on the committee. There's never been genuine unity about that on the council. And I don't want to send this committee out to do a bunch of fundraising unless we know we have a plan and we know where we want to go.
Well, one of the things that I think if we look back over our shoulders that Carl Wortman did bring to the table was at least some guidelines and consistent thinking as to what the end product might try to accomplish on behalf of the community. And that was done through surveys, sent into the community, what is it they're looking for, and et cetera. So there's a lot of ways to go about that. But I think probably doing this visioning meeting and getting the major items that you want to start, it's, I guess, similar to building a house. Do you want to do it contemporary? Do you want to do a ranch? Whatever. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish in line with what you said? What is this supposed to state to the community as well as the members of the armed services that we're honoring? And then find out what key items, a flag, statues, the bricks, and et cetera, what can be brought together at the base level that can be expanded upon going into even deeper agreement or bringing in, what was the name of the group again? For some reason it slipped my mind.
Project Snap.
Project Snap. And once all that is done in the meeting, then maybe we can have Carl Wortman do a rendering and then come back. It sounds just a little bit difficult to get organized if you have 40 different renderings floating around in front of everybody, because everybody's going to bring a rendering what they want. And I think we need to identify the major pieces that's going to be included in the memorial and let us, a party that is involved with that kind of project design, to bring it back to all groups involved.
One quick question. Debbie, have you guys contacted all these various different companies that make the memorials, make the statues and everything, and got feedback from them? Like, what could we do for, let's say, 250? What could we do? Just get some samples.
Well, we haven't necessarily put out and said to anybody, what can we do to contractor looking to build for $250,000.
No, I just threw that out. I
Right,
don't mean
or,
that.
you know, anything like in that. What we did get very much involved in was that project SNAP, which is Operation Proud Nation. And because of the memorials and what they do have to offer, it did becoming more of a SNAP, you know, what they can do. I'm very anxious for the council to end up hearing what Deborah has to bring to the table. Rather this be phase one, rather this be the only thing, rather it be, you know, bricks underneath, rather phase two, when we end up getting more money, we have the granite donated, we have the cement donated.
Is SNAP that thing where it's the
drawing.
the mural?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that right there holds between 6,000 and 7,000 pictures from various groups and involving the community. So you have a huge community involvement.
Do you
with something
know what
like
the
that.
cost of them,
About 100,000
for that?
for the mural itself, but that
Just
would
for
be-
the mural?
But that would be totally 100% donated to the village,
Okay.
if the village allowed it to go on its property.
So I certainly want us to hear back the full Project SNAP proposal, Operation Proud Nation. There's a lot of information there that we haven't discussed. At this point, you know, it's council's pleasure how you'd like to proceed. We can bring in Carlisle Wortman to do this. Council can ask the Veterans Committee to go back, present what they have, and send it. The next step for at least the initial proposal they have would be sending it to Carlisle Wortman to get a little bit more professional of a drawing and something that, you know, potentially our engineer could work off of in terms of, okay, what are the materials, what are the costs? That's a way that you guys can proceed.
Is Project SNAP available for a meeting coming up in 2 or 3 weeks?
Yes, they'll be here.
They'll be here.
Yes.
So I guess my own personal opinion would be, I would assume they've been involved with many of these projects across the nation, so.
The project that they would be placed in Wolverine Lake would actually also for 2 years be in the Pentagon.
Okay.
So.
2 years, pardon me?
2 years be placed in the Pentagon.
Okay.
Every 2 years they change pictures or change murals in the Pentagon. So yes, she's.
A rendition of the mural that's going to end up actually being here would be there.
Correct.
Well, with all that I've said, I think I'd go back around and recommend that the next meeting involve Project SNAP. Let's learn what
Well,
their competency and capability are. And
They are on the, you know, plan to be in 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks from today, actually. But in the meantime, we had a couple other fundraisers. We had a flag raising ceremony. It was brought to the attention today just to cancel everything until we figure out what we're going to do moving forward. Everyone has a different vision of what they want to see. People don't agree. You know.
does Project SNAP lead these, I mean, are they the center?
Project SNAP would remove everything away from all the professionalism that we would need from the council, from our admin, from any of the.
So they become an architectural rendering company in a sense.
Here's, as I understand it, though, here's what Project SNAP does, and here's what Project SNAP doesn't do. Project SNAP does their portion of these memorials, which is putting together these murals. They're very cool. They go out in the community. They get a lot of individual drawings. They put them together. They make the full mural. They provide fundraising services around all of that and do all the fundraising to pay for that. I don't know. I don't think they go out and design your memorial for you. They say, here's what we have. We can present this. It can be part of your memorial.
No, she would actually design it according to Wolverine Village.
Yeah, so it could
To the
have a
lakes.
lake in it, it could have
The-
landmarks that you could.
Right, but that's
That's
the
the
mural.
picture memorial, not the
picture,
flag
not
and
the
everything
full-
else.
Not the full,
That's-
not the
yeah,
full
yeah, yeah. We
general
understand that.
overall memorial.
Yeah, but if it's the centerpiece, would it be, if it was adopted, the centerpiece of the memorial?
And that is the answer the question that we keep coming back to.
So maybe we should hear how they make this presentation, what is going to go on, and then move forward with how, are they the centerpiece? Do you design, if they are, do you design the rest of the memorial to integrate itself with that centerpiece in terms of seating and flags and soldiers?
I'm happy to proceed down that path if
As a
it'll move
first
us,
pa- as the first
move us
run.
forward.
Yeah.
But we need to be able to make these decisions. I have concerns that we're making them in a vacuum, but if we want to do our work session, have Project Snap in, get more information about them, and then decide what next steps are. Maybe next step is Project Snap, boom, we're good, put a memorial together around that, and then we can proceed. What I've just said was wrong. Wouldn't be the first time I've been wrong.
Well, I don't think you're wrong. I would add that maybe we should have Carl Wortman. I don't think it would be a cost of retainer. I'd have to say that to Nathan, to sit in the audience to get an idea of what Project Snap is. I mean, they represent our interests as a planning group.
The presentation, she puts on quite a nice.
Yeah, that's, otherwise they'd be in a vacuum.
I don't think we need to get Carl Wortman in here yet, but I think if we did this for that
For the
24th.
The October 24th work session?
Yeah, and because I know they've been supposed to be here a couple times, we just got to make sure they're going to be here.
Well, I'm sorry, but they canceled, you guys canceled.
Yeah, it was us. We couldn't get a quorum.
Oh, is that what it
We had
was?
too many people out of
Okay,
town.
I apologize. All right. I would go
You're looking
along with
for a
that.
motion? Is that what
So,
you're
so we have a motion, but I'm willing to withdraw my second if you're willing to withdraw your
I will
motion.
withdraw my second. We can.
And let's go to a different motion.
Okay.
Let's have a motion to have the October 24th work session be a presentation from Project Snap. Is that what the motion you were going to make, Ed?
Yeah, I'll
Make your
that-
motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second it for conversational point.
Second. Okay, discussion on that motion.
Well, I would ask again, whether there's a reason to have our own planner just sitting in on that. Will we be using them at all? If we're not, then there's no reason to bring them in.
Well, we could use them, but we don't know what we're going to use them for yet.
Well, but at the same point in time, if Project Snap is, let's say, visually 30 or 50% of what this memorial is going to look like at the end of the day.
I think we can record the information. I mean, what I'd really like to do with the Project Snap part of it is get everybody on the same page about what Project
Okay.
Snap does, what they don't do.
Do we want it or do we
What they
not
can
want it?
do.
Okay, all right.
Do we want this or not? Yeah.
Okay.
If
Because-
not, it will be moved on to Commerce.
Mhm.
Oh, it will be, okay. Sounds like an ultimatum.
So,
It's been going on for a year.
any further discussion of the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
We get a roll call vote.
Duff,
No.
Scott,
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Demuth.
No.
Motion carries 3-2.
No, you need 4. You have a council of 7, so
But don't we have a majority of the
it's
three?
majority of council.
So it is majority of council, so we still need 4 tonight for every motion?
You need 4.
Yep.
You've been, okay.
Okay, motion fails for lack of 4. So no Project Snap?
We're back to where we started this conversation 15 minutes ago.
Council's pleasure.
Where
What
do
do
we
you guys
need
want to
to
do?
compromise on this, gentlemen? Where do we need to come forward? We have the memorial committee sitting here. We have a council sitting
only- the
here,
only
and the
thing
only
that-
thing we're doing is looking for a meeting. This isn't high, complex issues. It's their recommendation, not ours, that we bring Project Snap forward for discussions. So why don't we reintroduce that motion? And think about it clearly so we can at least make the next step, rather than sit here and look at each other for whatever reason we're doing that. So I'll reintroduce the motion.
You cannot.
I guess I can,
We
yeah.
would need a motion to reconsider from one of the no votes.
One of the no votes. Which are at that end of the table.
I don't see that.
Shame on you.
So,
Well,
So let me.
Hang on, we're only talking about Project Snap right now.
Hold on.
This has nothing to do with any other part of the memorial.
Hold on, so let's have this discussion with you guys. How would you guys like to proceed?
I would like to get a full consensus from them. They wanted.
I agree.
They wanted both council members removed from the committee. They were unflexible in terms of coming up with a limited or a multiple option for location. And this is just a moving goalpost, is what it seems like for me. If we take and say one thing, next meeting they come up with something that they want differently.
So is that an interpretation you don't want any memorial?
No. I want.
So what is the
one
interpretation
clear,
at the
concise-
table that you
We want
want?
something
instead of?
go ahead.
From their committee. I don't want to have, the next month, they have a whole nother thing, and they want us to take and re-vote on it, have a work session on it, and then we do all of it, and it's for nothing.
Well, let me ask the
John,
memorial
give me-
committee. Oh, go ahead. No.
First of all, I feel like you guys, to some extent, about how quickly council members were removed from that committee. But the
They
point,
resigned.
I was asked to. But anyway, the bottom line is, if this SNAP is going to be good for the monument and getting it up and making it look the way we want it to, we have to at least hear what they have to offer. If we don't like it, then we tell them, SNAP is out, go in another direction. And that would be their job, to go in another direction. That's just like if we get somebody comes in and has a monument and he says, no, my monuments are all 10 feet high. I don't do anything life-size. Well, you tell the guy, then we don't want you. So all I'm saying is this is informational, not only to them, but for us, because we are the ones, except John, that will be making the decision on what actually gets put up, where it gets put up, when it gets put up. So this is just an informational thing.
And it's at the least a $100,000 decision. So I think we all need more information, and we need to all be on the same basis for what that thing is.
Yeah, it's fact-finding. It's just like when we talk about the aerator, we got this guy said aerator this, aerator that, we got that information, and you digest it and you make a decision. But I think to let something like this slip by, especially that type of number, would be foolish.
May I say where I'm coming from? I want to keep our boards and our committees strong, and I want to give them the power that they have to bring motions forward to us. That in their committees and on their boards, they make a motion, they vote on it, and bring it to us. I didn't hear a motion brought that was voted on and brought up.
So let me correct this if I wasn't clear about it. This was a motion out of our meeting tonight with the Veterans Memorial Committee to hold a work session on Project SNAP and a visioning session. That was a motion from the committee tonight that we voted on, recommending council hear what Project SNAP has to say.
Well done.
And that we hold a visioning session. And I'm willing on council, we can take whatever part of any recommendation we want. And if council wants to hear more about Project SNAP and put off holding a visioning session until they decide, hey, you know, where the committee is right now, that's the direction we want to go, that's fine with me. But in terms of the information about Project SNAP and being able to make a decision whether or not to proceed, that's a recommendation from the committee. The committee has looked at Project SNAP, they said, hey, there's something here. They voted on it. It was a unanimous vote out of that committee to ask the council to look at Project SNAP and find more information so that the village can make a decision about whether or not we want to be involved in Project SNAP. So I want to be really clear about that. That's a recommendation from the committee.
So I'll make a motion that we have the work session with an amendment, I guess, that all of the what we've done in the past is now null and void, and we're starting from zero in terms of it. Because that's essentially what you guys are saying. They can't come up with a consensus. We have to come up with it. So all of what we've talked about and voted upon is now basically null, correct?
No.
I'm not, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying there, Mark.
In
I think-
terms of, so we've come up with a location for it. We've come up with a couple other little motions in terms of it. Well, you're saying, or they're saying, that none of them can come up with a consensus amongst them. That's a clear vision, so it then, essentially, we have to take and have full oversight of it, correct?
No,
Mark,
that's not what I'm
No,
saying.
Mark, on this with SNAP, I think they don't know all the idiosyncrasies of SNAP, just like we don't. So if they come here and make a presentation,
I can
and
understand
everybody
that.
will get it,
That's-
so at least as far as the SNAP end of it goes, we can say, council's interested in it, or council doesn't want any part of it. But that, I think, is an important part. It's just like,
The
if
committee
you
hasn't
found
made
out.
a motion about whether you want to use SNAP or not, right?
Can I say
The-
something?
wait.
Because we wanted to, and our intention was to ask you if we could vote, and I think that it would have been a proposal that we could have brought to you. But we were asked to allow the council to have more input, and more people in the community to have more input, and that's why we motioned to have the work session.
And
Okay.
let me say, I
That
heard,
makes sense.
I heard from multiple members of the committee that they weren't on board with the Project Snap vision.
Okay.
And that wasn't,
When you say
Where they
multiple,
were.
what way would the vote have gone?
I don't know.
Mr. President?
Hold
Let's call for the vote.
hold on. Well, we don't have a motion before us right now to call for.
There wasn't a second then, correct?
So there hasn't yet been a second on Mark's
Can I make a
vote.
second on that?
So we have a motion to hold work session on Project Snap and to roll back
Roll
to
back
the
to
beginning
the very
of
beginning.
of the process.
As you said, the cart got way before the horse.
Okay, so motion there, second there.
I'll second it. To be honest with you, I don't know what the rollback means, but yes, I'll second that motion. Let's have this discussion. As a
find
matter
out.
of fact,
We'll
I'd
find
like
out.
to see us call the vote and just get moving on with this if we can.
All right, let's have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go back. We'll have a work session. We'll have the work session October 24th. We'll hear from Project Snap. We can make decisions about Project Snap there. We're starting from scratch there. We can have discussions about how we want to proceed with this, because right now it hasn't been proceeding well, and we need to move along. All right, that motion carries. That'll be our work session. Let's get to the next item. And as reported there, the committee did ask to hold off on Polish dinner fundraising and flag raising until we get to the vision of how we're going to proceed. All right, next item. Discussion Oakland County No-Haz program. The administrator has researched this a bit and has more material for us.
Hazardous waste is a fun topic, so we'll move on to that. I wanted to bring this to council. It's a letter I got on September 21st inviting us to participate in the county's No-Haz program. I learned about this last year and got some research at that time. While I appreciate the invitation, I don't think it's a good fit for us. They have a collection of events around the county, but none of them are near Wolverine Lake or Commerce Township. And so we actually have to assign somebody to work at these events. We have to collect a fee from residents, which I don't think there would be many because these events are not convenient to us. And I didn't want to unilaterally make that decision. I wanted to at least bring it to council for discussion. But I think that there might be some other programs we'd like to research and let this one go by. That's my personal suggestion.
All right. And I think we need to take we don't have to take any motion on that. We would only have
No.
to take action if we want to join.
Right.
Just as an aside, I know Commerce has done some hazardous waste collection events. So I asked the administrator to research that a little bit more, see if that is something that village residents can also participate in. And we can bring some of that information back to people. We also have, as a reminder for everybody, a list at the village of all the places you can bring various recycling materials that might otherwise be collected at the No-Haz event. All right. Discussion, scheduling of the 2018 Appreciation Dinner.
The 3rd of December is great for me.
So what I was hoping for is to maybe identify 2 dates that would work for the majority. As of now, I believe these are all available, but I need to communicate back with Kaya on maybe a couple dates that might work. This is usually the first or second week of December. This is the event we hold to recognize our board members and staff members. Always a nice event, and I'd like to go ahead and get it booked as soon as possible, but I want to make sure that council can attend, so.
I like the idea of being as far away from Christmas as possible. So I would think the 3rd, Tuesday, for a lot of people that are on the road would be tough, but I think the 3rd and the 6th would be ideal for me.
I'd second that.
We have our Park and Rec liaison to Commerce had a comment.
We are currently at Parks and Recs at Commerce, working with the attorneys and everything to get a liquor license at Richardson Center. It has full catering capabilities, and you would be able to bring in a bartender or have them have a bartender if you wanted to hold it there, and it seats there's 2 rooms with 200 people. So that's just throwing it out there as an idea.
Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to get us off the scheduling, but, so the 3rd or the 6th?
6th.
I would prefer the 6th, but, yeah, and I'm open to either.
Any of these dates work for me right now.
I'm happy. How about you, John?
Yeah, 6 is good. I was just checking the calendar in the corner that you spoke to make sure.
You're talking calendar, huh?
Yeah.
I thought there might be input for you.
We're okay, right?
Okay, so let's go with the 6th.
All right, I will look into a couple venues and report back to council on what we find.
Research and report back.
We've got enough time for this, so I'll touch base with Linda and see what's available.
Okay. Brings us to second call to the public, opportunity for citizens to address the council regarding any and all village business. Okay.
Commerce Parks and Recs. They're looking to do weekly on Friday nights, starting in July and August, Music's in the Park at the Richardson Center, which would be very, very cool and very local and very fun. So they're going to do it weekly as opposed to those weird dates that we picked where nobody kind of knew when they were happening. And because of this liquor license and things like that, there's going to, be a little more age adult appropriate.
Which day of the week was that going to be?
Fridays.
Fridays
In July and August, I believe. And that has to do with the school and parking across the street and stuff like that. So that we can't go into September or late August. So it'll be like the last week of June until August. It hasn't been completely decided. And I don't think there's much else about, going on at Parks and Recs over there. But I did want to take this opportunity, I don't know if I missed it at first call to the public, to thank you for your service. You will be missed, and it's always been enjoyable to work with you.
I'm not going all that far away. I'm just going to be a council person sitting in the back there.
We always say that, but it doesn't always happen.
Can we have a vote on that?
Thank you, Linda.
Whether you can attend or not?
Yep.
I try not to talk too much. I just want to thank John. He's done a great job. He's been an inspiration to me. He's got Bonnie involved. He's been a great part of our community. He's going to be sorely missed. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Again, I'm not going that far away. Jerry McCuskey. We can probably get you a mic there, Jerry.
But it's just a short.
My second.
I want to hear it at home. Everybody wants to hear it at home. If my husband was here, as you all know, he would have told you about the weeds and the harvester. There were no rules, there were no regulations. If somebody called up and they had a lot of weeds and really needed a harvester, the harvester just went. The administrator had the harvester go there. We didn't have a console, okay everything. There was nothing connected to it. I mean, it was just one good big village. And if you needed help, we were there to help. And it's the same thing now. And there are people out on the lake that really need a lot of help with the wind blows the wrong way and you've got yards and yards of weeds in front of your house. The harvester should go there and help these people out. Not that they're going to do everybody, but where it's really, really necessary. And thank you, John.
Oh, thank you.
You've been a blessing to this village.
Possibly blessing. Tonight, some may have said curse.
We also want to give kudos to the lovely Mrs. McGee here because she's put up with a whole lot of time and effort away. So, thank you, Monique.
Anybody else second call?
And I'll kind of second or third what everybody else said about you too, John, so. Thank you. Last week, we had a video service provided for, it was actually for Wixom, but it was in Milford Township, and it was regarding PFAS, or PFAS. I think, is everybody familiar with PFAS?
Wait, which?
PFAS.
PFAS.
Mm.
Which
The
acronym is PFAS?
Yeah.
That's the pollutants.
The
that
coal tar,
they've
the coal
been-
tar things that,
Well, no, this is.
oh, that they've discovered over in
It's
the
a
in the Huron
pollutant,
River
yeah,
watershed.
it's-
Yeah, sorry.
exactly.
Sorry,
It's-
I was trying to remember which pollutant we were talking about.
It's a pollutant that they found in
Yeah,
the
that
water.
they found in the Huron River watershed
So-
and shut off fishing.
We did this, they had a meeting last week, and we provided the video services for it, and it was a really good meeting, and they had toxicologists, biologists, they had a whole panel of people from DEQ, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Agriculture, Oakland Health, and then the Huron River watershed, which kind of oversees a lot of this. And they went through a pretty detailed presentation about what this substance is, what people can expect to see out there, what they're finding in the water. And actually, Wolverine Lake was on a couple of the maps that they presented. So I think it might be of interest for the village residents to look at this video and look at this information. It can be found on the Milford website, the Wixom website, the Huron River website, and it's also making its rounds on Facebook. So you should be able to see the video. It's about 2 hours. It's a little bit long, but the presentation is really good. And there's kind of a question and answer session at the end. There was probably about 120 people in the audience, and they had a lot of really good questions, and a lot of them got answered. And I think most of the residents of the village would probably be interested in what those questions and answers were too. So, all right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else second call? Seeing none, I will move us along. Recommendations from Police Chief Ellsworth.
Now that my camera duties are done. That's right.
And yet it's a camera topic.
Yes, this is for the request to purchase the automatic download WatchGuard system from budgeted funds. This is something we had a discussion at during our budget sessions, and we've discussed it. I've kicked it around, and I've actually managed to get the price dropped another couple $100, which was kind of a nice surprise when I asked for an updated purchase agreement. They dropped it a couple $100 without me even saying anything. But they've done some other things for us too. But this is just going to be another one of those things that helps us with our daily video, and it's going to be much more secure than it currently is.
Chief, is this like what we have in the park and?
No, this is actually, what this does is it actually takes the video right from our cars and automatically downloads it to a server in the station. So we can actually go back and watch, review, and download for our prosecutor's office. It's much easier that way. Otherwise,
you might recall, we talked about this during the budget session.
Currently, what I do is I have to go out and take a key and unlock it, go through a process to take the USB out, bring it in, download it, and then download it to DVDs, where now it's going to be automatically downloaded.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that out of budgetary funds, we spend not to exceed $9,330 for the watchdog system.
Second. Motion Duff, second Dumont. Further discussion? Discussed at length during the budget session, so glad to see we're finally getting it. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, brings us to topics for October 24th work session. We have, after some discussion, set that. Pending business, we have none tonight. Update from the chief.
I've got a few things here I want to go over real quickly. I know it's running late. New computers have arrived and are in the process of being installed. Our new speed signs that we got will be arriving within 10 days. I checked and I got the email today that they should be here soon. I want to thank Marine Officer Steve Grunwald for his handling of the Marine Patrol this summer. He did the bulk of it. 31 citations were written. I think from what I've heard, he did a fantastic job out there, and people are really pleased that we're seeing a lot more enforcement, and I am very pleased with that also. Before the meeting started, I passed out a flyer. It's about Be the Match. Berkeley Public Safety Department challenged us to a Be the Match bone marrow registry drive, and there are currently 14,000 patients waiting for a match. In fact, yesterday morning I met with Berkeley Public Safety Officer Brian Gothard, who was behind this with them. He actually needed a match. When he was hired there, it was discovered that he had some type of blood cancer, and his wife happened to be his match. And he is now back to work and in remission after being off for 9 months going through the treatment. So that was a very nice thing. I had a chance to meet with him, and it was pretty cool to see and talk to him about it. And this is something that doesn't cost us anything. It's just we're challenging not only our officers but our residents to be the match. I have flyers there. I have flyers upstairs. I think we're going to be putting it on the website. I pushed it out, social media. It's just another good thing for us to be involved in. Since we can't sing and we're not going to do the lip sync thing, I figured this is going to be the next best thing. So tomorrow morning we're actually hosting 11 different police departments here at the village, the new center upstairs, the new conference room upstairs. The FBI are going to be here for a training, doing some tabletop exercises. I talked with them last fall about this, and we've kind of put it off. We've kind of worked our way into this particular date. It happens to be a busy time of the year for all of us, but tomorrow morning there's going to be 24 of us up in that conference room doing some emergency response type tabletop exercises involving actually kidnapping and different things at the high school. So 11 different departments are coming, including the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, Novi, Wolverine Lake, obviously, Walled Lake, Milford, Wixom, Orchard Lake, White Lake, Commerce Sub, South Lyon, Sylvan Lake, Novi. So it's going to be a really, really good thing. This is the first time we've done this, but between us and Special Agent Chris Hess, we were able to put this together, and it starts tomorrow morning. So I'm excited about it. It's really, really nice to be able to do this stuff here in our village, be able to host it, and that's a great room, and we appreciate it. Other than that, I think that's it. That was enough.
Okay, thank you. Update from the treasurer.
Mr. President, audit field work is almost completed. There are not going to be any red flags or anything that will shock you, with the intent being that the audit presentation will be at our November 12th Monday meeting.
Sounds like a good one for me to miss. I kid. I always like the audit presentation, actually. All right, update from the administrator.
Couple things. Election day is November 6th. As you all know, we have 9 charter amendments on the ballot, which makes it the longest ballot that anyone will have ever seen here in the village. I had a meeting with the Commerce Township clerk today in this room to plan out the space, because it's going to be a high turnout election. And so we really want to encourage people to learn about those charter amendments before you get here, because the more you know in advance, the quicker you can be through the line. They were published in full in today's spinal column. There's a link on the front of our website that shows you the charter language, explains what they are, also has a link to the council video from the night we had the work session. We'll be emailing that information out this week. It'll be shared on social media, and certainly we can take questions in the office as well about what those are. We also have a sample ballot upstairs. It's taped to the countertop, so anybody who wants to see exactly what you'll be voting on can visit Village Hall and check that out.
Did we have to buy an extra countertop for it?
No, it fit barely. Also want to remind council that because of our charter, we will be meeting on Monday next month, Monday, November 12th. It's incorrectly posted in the calendar as 7, but another oddity of our charter is that meeting is 7:30, so I'll make sure that we're all on the same page about that. Hopefully, we won't have to do that meeting much longer, but that's a charter issue. So, also wanted to mention the lake level. We have started the gradual drawdown, but we had a lot of rain the last couple of weeks, and so the drawdown doesn't look like it started, but it has. As of today, we were only half an inch down from our normal level, but you'll see that start going down about 2 inches between now and the 1st of December. DPW is planning on taking the buoys out possibly tomorrow or Friday. That doesn't mean that laws don't exist, they still do, but the buoys will not be in beyond this week. I think that's everything, other than thanking you for your time on the village. I've been in hundreds of public meetings, and I don't think anybody runs a meeting as well as you, so you will be missed. I also have a gift from our staff down here, and I wanted you to take this. And I wanted to stress that we didn't spend a dime on this. This was a prototype.
I recognize that sign.
So we're very cheap. This was up as a test, and then we took it down because the font wasn't big enough. But this was a freebie, and we wanted you to take this with you and display it, hopefully somewhere. And we are very appreciative of what you did.
Nicely done.
Just so we're clear, we were gonna sign our names to it, but it's anti-graffiti.
Yeah, so we couldn't do that. It's the thought that counts.
I think there's a spot on my garage wall for this.
Oh, jeez. On the outside of your garage wall, right?
Since the photo taking is photo, here, Nathan, stand up, present it to me.
Can I swear you out?
Yeah, give me a second.
You know,
Thing here.
you can swear at me.
Thank you, Joe.
Alrighty. Well, thanks.
That is all I had.
All right. With that, we will move to council comments. We'll start down here this month. Mr. Scott.
Well, there's really a couple things. Being part of a community like we all are, I was walking out of the house, and I think we all saw the television, what's going on in Florida and et cetera. So a little bit of a hats off to the communities down there. Thank goodness my kids all and grandkids moved up from the Carolinas 2 years ago. There's another item that's taking place tomorrow. It's a judicial action, so I don't want to take this wonderful, happy meeting in a different direction, but I was at Lakes Area Youth Assistance, and there was some conversation going around the table about a name that we all know. Pretty negative thing that happened in Mr. Stack's life and everybody that was involved in this unfortunate item, but I thought, Linda certainly helped me on this, remembering back when I first met Mike, it was about 13 years ago when we were rebuilding together Southeast Michigan, and he put together a group to go in and do something on I think it was Bluebird Road to help a family. And that's when I found out the depth of that gentleman. Not only did that for our community, he organized petitions and educated residents, so we ended up with sewers on Laguna. Certainly it was his main leadership that put together those barges, in addition to other, but I mean, I've screw drilled, and everybody here has screw drilled planks on those barges and put the fireworks out. Onwards and upwards, we don't even have to put the number of different things that fund was put together, and Mike organized research and put that 503 together. The number of years he spent on council helping this community, rebuilding, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said, attending this meeting today, there was some conversations about how important he was to Layla. So I just thought and of course the Commerce Township Citizen of the Year. Tomorrow's going to be an important day for that young man and for all of the other people on the other side of that unfortunate incident. And I just thought it was a good time to remember what good people do and how fortune can take them in directions that nobody planned. And on another note, John, I don't know how many years we've been together on different boards, but it's a good 16 or 17.
We were locked up on water board even before this.
Absolutely, and I only can echo what everybody else has said. We'll miss you. I expect you'll be out there giving us a hassle, telling us what we're doing right and wrong, so do stick around. And thank you for your service and leadership, my good friend.
Thank you. Mr. Sinkwitz.
To reiterate, I want to thank you for all your time and effort that you put into the council and the buku number of meetings that you've attended. Again, thank you for all that. On another note, has anything happened with the Phragmites yet?
The county sprayed those. They did not charge us, so
Okay.
they're in the process of dying, and when the ground's frozen up, they will be dug out, and they will not be coming back next year.
Good.
So special thanks to the county and to the applicator. They just added that corner on. It was not in their plans, and they are not going to invoice us for that. So very nice thing for them to have done.
The other thing, you and I touched on this. Nathan and I thought that the swing set in the Amenia Park was going to be moved back. And I didn't pay any attention. I go down that road, but I stopped one day. There's some people playing, and that swing set is almost in the parking area. It's got to be moved back. It's unsafe. There could be a lot of ugly problems come out of it. So either before the ground freezes or next year, that should be a priority for DPW.
We will reposition that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Duff?
Mr. President, thank you for all that you've done and your service, and enjoy your retirement.
Semi-retirement. Retiring from this and back to the full-time job.
John, you have a very unique gift for doing this. For 13 years?
12 as president, 13 on council, 5 as water board chair before that.
I don't
and a
think
year on water board
I would have
before
been
that.
on a single board had you not talked to me and said, hey, what do you think? And John Scott as well. And there's a lot of volunteers in this village. In fact, we're run by volunteers almost exclusively. And I'll bet most of them would say what I'm telling you right now. And that's thank you.
Well, you're quite welcome. So I thought about giving a long speech here, and I thought, no, I think my final gift will be a gift to all of you, and I'll make it brief. This isn't actually my last council meeting, because we've got a work session coming up, so not setting it down for the last time. But I do want to say that I'm aware of what an extraordinary privilege it was to be able to lead this village through some very difficult times. As a community, we're in very good shape overall. I'm really happy with where the council is. It's time for me to move on and do a few other things, but I want to thank everybody who has been involved in this, from, I think it was Joanne Sullivan who first dragged me down to a water board meeting, right on through to everybody who showed up tonight to let us know what they think. A village like this is the closest form of government to people. People show up and they want to let us know what they think. And I am happy to say that at least as long as I've been up here wielding the gavel, I've tried to listen to everything everybody has had to say. I haven't always agreed, but I've tried to listen. And I hope that the next council goes forward in the same spirit. And I doubt I will ever do anything quite so useful and immediate to people again. But it was mostly fun, and really just wow. I'm glad to be out of this meeting. Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
So motion Duff, second Dumont. Further discussion? We are. Oh, I need a roll call on that because we didn't do it on the original.
Roll call.
Ready?
Yep.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes. Thank you. Wouldn't you know, my last thing is getting corrected by the attorney on a procedural thing.